Hello, everybody. It's been a while. Just wait a couple minutes for everyone to kind of come in. Just make sure everything is running well. How has everyone been? It's been a long time, a while. Just waiting for everyone to come in. So I thought I'd come on and do a Q&A and just kind of like touch base of where I've been, what's been happening, how things have been going, and everything like that. Yeah, so what's up, everyone? Someone comment in the chat. I've got this. So I'm running on Dan McClellan's account. So he's actually let me have access to his account to run this live stream. And it's got these new features. I haven't actually seen these before. Like you can type something and like type something. And it like pops up in the in the little side view there, which is pretty cool. Master Machetia. Hey, from Canada. I'm drinking tea because I'm cool. Absolutely. That's awesome. I'm drinking a tall glass of water. How long have you guys been a part of the Deep Drinks community? I've got a lot of new followers recently, and I've got some people who go back a long time and some people who have popped in and out and some super new people. So what's up? How long you guys have been here? Two weeks. Nice. Did you come here from the inspiring philosophy discussion? The slavery debacle. I thought I recognized your name. Yes. It's crazy to me that we're still talking about slavery, because to me it's quite obvious what the Bible says, and I just don't know. I just don't know how like people are getting around that in a way. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I've actually got a debate, like a review to watch of the debate I did with Inspiring Philosophy, which is more of a discussion than like an actual debate. But let's have a look. See if I can remember how to do this. So I haven't actually watched this clip. Can you guys let me know if you can hear it? Adam will say that the punishment for the crucifixion wasn't actually just. Can you guys hear that? It's saying that. Yeah, it's saying that it's coming through. Yeah, that's true. Apologists do seem to ignore things I don't agree with. Awesome, cool. Can hear. Hi, Chip. How you doing? So, this conversation, it was actually like pretty brutal, to be honest, because I was so nervous at the start of the conversation that my arguments were so flawed, and it's like I've gotten a lot of hate, which is like cool. Pragmatic Crystal, how you doing? It's been so good to see you. And I was actually really nervous. Like you can see my hand shaking when I was like pouring the glass, and I was super nervous and stuff. And so my arguments for the first claim, which was actually like the claim that I wanted to talk about the most, was like super cringe, and like I didn't do a good job of setting up the argument. But I don't think this video here is about that. I think it's about the resurrection claims. And so I thought it'd be cool to just check it out like live. I haven't seen this yet. I haven't seen any even minute of it, and just give you guys some of my thoughts. And then I also want to talk a little bit about where I've been, any mental health, some mental health stuff I've been, going through, explain my absence and stuff, and also talk about maybe where deep drinks might be heading. But let's continue to watch this. So it's 11 minutes 50 seconds from Trinity Radio. It's got 1,400 views, which is cool. All right, let's do this.
I think Bart Ehrman will say that the punishment for the crucifixion wasn't actually just dying on the cross, but it was actually having your body displayed up there and decaying.
And then what about Josephus saying that the Jews used to take the bodies off the crosses and bury them before the sun going down? Or Philo saying that in Egypt on the emperor's birthday, they would take bodies off the cross and bury them. Or the fact that we found this guy named Yohanan with a spike in his ankle showing.
I have to like, I had to like do so much editing for this because I wanted to make sure I was displaying the text correctly, and I had to make sure I knew what they were talking about. So many times I had to call Michael and be like, yo, am I getting this correct? I'm getting the right context.
Showing that he was crucified, yet he had a proper burial because he was in a burial box. So we have a bunch of evidence to show that the crucified victims did get buried at times.
Yeah, sure.
So but I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's a great case of just having this modern bias going, well, I don't think the Romans would have allowed Jesus to be buried. And then we go look all this evidence to show that, no, they did allow people to get buried.
Firstly, I said, I don't know.
You're about to see an aggressive but jovial exchange between Michael Jones, a Christian, and David McDonald, an atheist, on the Deep Drinks podcast on claims for the resurrection versus claims of alien abduction and claims within Mormonism. Now, it is a hilarious discussion, but you got to stick with it right to the end, because toward the end, Jones is going to explain something about some of his atheist debaters and how they're biased when it comes to the evidence in a really unexpected way. So you'll need to stick with it to the end to get to that. But let's jump in now as they talk about alien abduction.
Okay, first of all, like his background, you got to have a bookcase, baby. I know it's cringe, and people are like, "Oh, he's just showing off." To me, a bookshelf is like a modern work of art. It's like, oh, just think about what's in there. Like, you can like pick up any book and you can like open it up and you can like learn something. Like, learning to me is, if there is spirituality around learning, or like a religion around just learning, then I honestly feel just like so at home learning, reading. Like, it's just So love his bookshelf. Anyway, let's watch this.
Okay, all right. So let's just take that. Let's just take that. I'll tentatively say, okay, we can trust those testimonies. Okay. Are there any other testimonies that you don't trust? So what about like firsthand accounts of alien abductions?
What about them? Like,
there are thousands more, and people you can still talk to today who have had alien abductions.
Sure. And
testimonies from multiple people who testified to the same thing,
that they encountered some sort of non-human beings.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to point out to how Michael is already reframing it, because he's like, well, if David has some really good evidence here, I have to reframe it as some non-human being, because he has to find a way to kind of walk back. Like, if I have really good evidence for some alien claim that I'm about to come up with, he's going to have to walk back and go, oh yeah, it was just demons or something. He's going to have to like inject it into his worldview. So he's already kind of, I wouldn't say poisoning the well, but he's already kind of injecting like his ideas here. By the way, Michael and I are friends, and part of the reason, like, if you go to the original video and you see like so many, like, you see a lot of people talking about me being incredibly insufferable, and a lot of hate towards me. First of all, I get it a little bit, but the original concept of the debate was supposed to be a conversation between me and Michael, as if we were just having whiskey at home and just drinking. And because we're friends, like, we banter a little bit, and I was bantering a lot, for sure. And it comes across as me being like an insufferable dude. And especially because when I was uploading it, I had a few different names, and then my marketing degree came out a little bit, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm just going to label it, I debated a Christian apologist over whiskey, because I think that's essentially what we were doing. But it wasn't initially meant to be like a structured debate. That's why I hadn't prepared anything or anything. But anyway, sorry.
Them?
At the end of the day, I could be perfectly fine saying that we have sufficient evidence that they encountered something.
Okay.
So in terms of what they are, I'm not willing to say, because those beings did not tell us directly. People interpreted. But with Jesus, we have him basically saying, I rose from the dead. And he told
we have people
disciples.
writing that, but we also have these people who tell us about aliens, saying these aliens told me they're from Venus's.
So this is where we start evaluating testimony based on what we get. So we start looking at the quality in terms of testimony. Are these people that are doing alien encounters, are they writing in a culture that is going to not persecute them, praise them, give them the fame they want? Yeah, that's going to make me a little skeptical. Meanwhile, the disciples are in a very hostile Jewish community. They want them to shut up. They're persecuting them. Paul's letters talks about this.
I don't know if you've met any alien abduction people, but like people move away from them on the bus. Like I'm not saying they have the same plight as the Hebrews, but I'm saying that like if I met someone who was like, "I was abducted by aliens," I was like, "Cool story. I'm going this way." Like, like I wouldn't be someone I want to engage with. But there are a lot of people who do have those experiences.
And there's an entire community willing to praise them and help them and get them growing. And they're not being thrown to the lions or being stoned like Stephen, for example.
Yeah, I guess so. In some cultures, they might be. But all right, okay, let's say you don't accept the aliens. All right, okay. What about the golden plates for the Book of Mormon? 12 eyewitnesses, some who left the church, who said they saw the plates and never recanted that they saw the plates.
Why they leave the church?
Because they disagree with Joseph Smith's doctrine.
Oh, okay.
But it's interesting because I thought more about this. Why they leave the church? I think that's supposed to be like an eventual gotcha. Like why they leave the church? Why they leave the church? Are we forgetting about who was it? It was Judas. Are we forgetting about Judas? Do you know? One of the people who walked and talked with Jesus and like saw all the miracles and stuff. Are we forgetting about Judas? Like,
but they still believe that they saw the golden plates.
Spiritually.
No, physically and spiritually.
They said they saw them in a vision.
Physically and spiritually, there were different accounts. There's 12 accounts, and these are people who are 100 years, 200 years ago.
All right, we're going to jump right back into this clip, so don't go anywhere. But in case you're lost, Michael Jones, the Christian, is just trying to show what's at stake for those who claim to have seen the risen Christ and committed their lives to that versus what's at stake for alien abduction claims. I mean, these Christians were in an in-group, out-group, honor-shame society, and now they were on the outs when it came to the Jews. They were on the outs when it came to the Greeks. They were on the outs with everyone. They had to face the possibility of persecution and death, and some of them did die. People will live for something they know isn't true, but they won't die for something that they know isn't true. And
whoa. Okay, I need to stop. Is it Braxton? I think. I need to stop Trinity Radio right here because no one is saying that they don't consider it to be true, right? Like there's a lot of like flat earthers who would die for their beliefs, right? They're literally there have been. There are people. There's that dude who like built his own rocket and tried to fly off. Like he literally risked his life and he died. And he's a flat earther, right? There's people who risk and die all the time for mistaken beliefs. I mean, there's like just look at all the cults around the world. They really truly do believe when they commit mass suicide together. They all truly believe that is true, right? It's and thank you. Yes, it is Braxton. Thank you. Awesome. Seems like a nice guy, by the way. But so I'm not saying that they didn't believe, but it's like it's quite clear to me. Like when you read I am getting into waters now that a little bit people might fact check me and it might be wrong. But from when I read the Gospels, especially if I read like Mark and Matthew, Luke, John, like I read them in order of when they were written, we seem to see more theological weight being added at the end, especially in like John. But like Mark, there's no, virgin birth. In Mark, there's no encounter with Jesus having with the resurrected, like the disciples with the resurrected Jesus. Like there's none of that in Mark. Why? Wouldn't that be super important? You're telling me you're going to tell a story about the Son of God, and you're just going to leave out, like the virgin birth? What? So it's like you can see that like these stories, like they seem to have developed over time. And then there's these communities around these people all spread out across growing with this idea of that Jesus was the Messiah and he's going to return and all this stuff, right? And you can just so see that 40, 50 years later, there are these stories that are being twisted. I don't know. It just makes too much more sense to me that these people believe, but they were just mistaken about what actually happened. I mean, that's what I think. So just to interrupt there.
And on the other hand, when it comes to alien abduction cases, these folks may seem weird to some people, but they're not going to be persecuted or killed for what they believe. In fact, they might even become internet famous. Now, when it comes to Mormonism, they're disagreeing about what the claims of early Mormons actually were. But now things are about to turn as Jones takes it in a different direction. And we're coming to that big clip, so stay with it and watch.
I love when atheists do this because basically you're trying to argue that, look, you believe in this supernatural or this divine event, event from 2,000 years ago. Let me compare it to these other divine events. At the end of the day, you're just making a great case that atheism or naturalism has to be false because all these divine events are occurring.
No,
and that just becomes a conversation between me and Mormons.
No, I'm asking you, if you say that there is a testimony, right? There's testimony that we can trust that was written 30 years after the fact in a language that Jesus didn't speak.
He spoke Greek.
You think Jesus spoke Greek?
Yes. I did a whole video. Did Jesus speak Greek?
Okay.
So I haven't looked into that. Has anyone, like, a lot of you guys will be biased, but of course, because a lot of you guys, you can see my audience in the chat saying Michael was being a dick in that thing, and then everyone in Michael's audience was saying I was being a dick. So you guys will usually side with me if you're a channel member of Deep Drinks, but does anyone actually, like, has either of you, anyone looked into that at all? Like, is that actually legitimate? I haven't had time to look into it or anything, but Jesus speaking Greek just seems wild to me. Like, I remember Dr. Kip Davis in one of our episodes said that he doesn't think that even you can even tie the disciples to speaking Greek. Like, he says there's absolutely almost no chance that the disciples wrote. He said there's 0% chance that the disciples wrote the manuscripts, like wrote the Gospels. I don't know. Let's just read some of these. Didn't the persecution happen hundreds of years after Jesus' crucifixion? I mean, and this whole idea of like persecution, I mean, yes and no. Like, yes and no. I mean, there's some stories in the Book of Acts and stuff that happened like quite after, like quite soon after, like people being stoned and stuff. This is Donato. I doubt he believes in any of the supernatural. No, I think he does. I'm pretty sure he didn't. I'm sure that Dan McClellan did. Dr. Dan McClellan did a video on that. Yep. Yeah, he probably. Yeah, I could see that because that makes sense again. And I want to talk a little bit too about, like, because my first claim was apologetics is foundationally dishonest. And I've been speaking to some friends about that. And I also did a members only live stream with that I think Michael actually put up on his channel. So if you go to Michael Granado, you can see the whole thing on his channel. But I just wanted to flesh out my idea of apologetics being foundationally dishonest. And I think I have some more clarity for anyone who's watched that initial my initial takes on that, and then they're like a bit confused. I think I've fleshed it out a little bit more, and I still don't know where I fully sit, but I'm still kind of massaging it in my head. Anyway, back to this.
Beyond that point, 30 years after the fact, written in a language, written in Greek, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, written in a language. 30 years after the fact, written down.
I can't believe it was written in a language, guys.
What Jesus said and did, and everything. And you think we can trust that because it was written down?
I will say I like how Braxton just like watches and he can like laugh along with it. I get the vibe that a lot of people who are watching this were like just fucking seething. They were like really, oh, I hate Michael so much, or I hate David so much. And like, I like people who can laugh and just have a good time, not take it too seriously.
Right.
Not just because it was written down. There were other reasons.
Testimonies. Yeah. So I'm asking you, okay, do you apply that same acceptance for the Book of Mormon and the plates?
Yes.
So you accept that there was a golden plate?
No, I think there's some problems there. For example, the golden plates say things that are.
I know there's problems there. There's problems in the story of Jesus.
Okay, then we talk about the different problems and see if one is bad or one is good or vice versa, and we see where we come to. You're trying to generalize too much. You're trying to say, well, how could you accept this and not this? I'm saying we take this at a case by case basis. I've always said we take claims like this on a case by case basis. We don't just generalize.
Sorry. No, okay. Sorry.
I feel like that's
that looking at the camera is a joke. It's like every time I think he's doing these little apologetic like tactics, I just look at the camera and go, well,
basic fact of
yeah,
life.
No, okay.
I love this guy.
It's hard because anything that I bring up, you're just going to say different cause, right? Like if I say Satya Sai Baba, and like you can talk to people who said, yeah, he raised my body from the dead.
By the way, sorry to keep interjecting. I hope you guys are okay with me interjecting. But Satya Sai Baba, I got to find this clip, man. I'm gonna have to go to Instagram. someone sent me this, right? Like one of my cousins sent me this. It's so funny. So the followers of Satya Sai Baba believe that he's come back, and they're praising him like he's been reincarnated. Like, but this dude, I don't know enough about this man, but like this guy is just sitting there playing with like Legos or something. Let me just open up this. Let me just open this up. Switch to this tab. So this 13-year-old boy is the reincarnation of Satya Sai Baba. I didn't even see the end. Just here. He's playing with a Rubik's Cube? Or drinking something? Anyway, are these people this like, do they not believe what they believe? Do you know what I mean? Anyway, it's just funny.
Radha Krishna, right? There's a 3 or 4 testimonies you can read from people in the 50s who were raised from the dead by Satya Sai Baba.
Okay. I don't see how this has anything to do with the resurrection at the end of the day.
If you're not accepting, if their testimonies aren't sufficient to warrant belief, and you can talk to them today, why is the testimonies of Jesus, written 30 years plus 30 years after the fact, which have contradictions in them, why are they trustworthy?
Because it's about, again, going back to case-by-case basis, the type of testimony, the various factors associated that we evaluate to see if they're true or not. So there are so for example, if you're going to say to me, like, yeah, I've been to the US, I might be a little skeptical of that because I don't even know if you've been to the US. But if like Dan says he's been to the US, I'm going to be like, yeah, he has, because he's got good evidence to show he's been to the US.
Sure.
So again, I don't just go, well, if you've not been to the US, then Dan Patterson didn't go to the US. That's too much generalizing. Instead, we go case by case basis, depending on the person.
My mind was getting absolutely like fucked here. I was like, what is he talking about? Because I was like, does this even make sense? Like, maybe I'm the one who it doesn't make sense to me. Like, anyway. Oh, Chip, thank you for the $5 super chat. That's super nice. Thank you. Michael's saying that he takes the claim on a case-by-case basis when he also talks about the Gospels being reliable enough to take in toto is BS. Yeah, that's a fair point. And that's the other thing too is, yeah, he ignored my question, right? You just said that. It feels like that. Like this whole conversation, I went away from this conversation like feeling pretty awful, to be honest, because I think part of again, I like having conversations with Michael and stuff. Michael's a friend, but like part of my job, my role, well, part of what I've done with Deep Drinks, I've done like 100 and something episodes now, is I bring someone on and I try and, for the most part, I try and give a best faith interpretation, or like I try to understand. Like I'm imagining, I'm trying to use my imagination. I'm trying really hard to absorb their message, fully understand their message, and then I let questions come up naturally, or in my prior like research for the episode. I will really try and get into. It's a lot of work. I try and get into their mindset and try and make it good understanding. So when I left this conversation, I was like I was in the car drunk, going to another podcast shoot, but for work. My boss is driving, and we're like late. I think he got a speeding ticket, and I'm drunk, and I'm sitting there, I'm trying to transfer over the 500 gigs of footage that it was. It literally was 500 gigs, and I'm sitting there I'm like, oh man, like, am I just like wrong? Like, because like the amount of like the confidence that Michael had on a lot of points and stuff, and the way that he could kind of like just noting that there could be like that I could have some bias that I don't know. Like, you got to remember, like I was a Christian for 25 years of my life or whatever, and I would have died for my beliefs. Like I really truly believe what I believe. It's like I wonder, like, am I like messed up now? Like am I like not making sense now? Like is my worldview just like crazy now? So it was like it was really kind of brutal to deal with, because I felt like I don't think Michael was deliberately doing it for sure, but it definitely felt like I was getting gaslit or something. Like it was weird. Hello, Numenomon. Hello. It's good. Apologists are masters of dodging the issue and are trying to dig. They try to dig you, or else it would have to answer the actual harder questions. Yeah, and so I'll get to that when we talk a little bit more about that. Not sure who EAAN is, but explain. We'll keep watching this.
The person and what they're presenting. This is what you do in a court of law.
So
Witnesses are judged based on what they present. We don't go, well, this witness was clearly lying, therefore with the next witness you're going to bring out must also be lying.
All right, so the next clip you'll see is where Michael Jones claims that some of his debaters are biased and shows why in a unique way. So we're going to come to that. But what we just heard was so common. It's so common for skeptics to say, well, you Christians don't believe the supernatural experiences of these Mormons. You don't believe the supernatural experiences of these Hindus. So why should we believe your supernatural claims? Well, here's the thing. This misses the point. We don't necessarily dismiss the supernatural experiences claimed by Mormons or Hindus. When it comes to a Mormon who experiences what they call the burning in the bosom, which is supposed to be like an internal testimony from God that Mormonism is true, I don't deny that they had some sort of a supernatural experience. I don't question the validity of that. I question the source of that and whether that supernatural source can be trusted. Same with many other religions. And you say, yeah, but they say the same thing about you. That's right. That's why I don't point to my own supernatural experiences as the reason others should believe that Christianity is true. At least it's not the only thing. I want to point to the publicly available evidence that we've been discussing. And it's to that evidence that Jones says some of his debating partners have been biased as atheists. And we're going to see why right now.
You're describing what
I'm trying to touch base. I just want to listen to that again.
Supernatural claims. Well, here's the thing. This misses the point. We don't necessarily dismiss the supernatural experiences claimed.
Okay, so there are other supernatural experiences, right? And I'm guessing he's lumping this in with alien abductions. Okay.
By Mormons or Hindus. When it comes
Mormons and Hindus, okay.
to a Mormon who experiences what they call the burning in the bosom, which is supposed to be like an internal testimony from God that Mormonism is true, I don't deny that they had some sort of a supernatural experience. I don't question the validity of that. I question the source of that and whether that supernatural source can be trusted. Same with many other religions. And you say,
okay, so I think we might agree here actually. So except instead of using the word source, like trust whether or not they came from a source, like what supernatural source it comes from, I'm trusting. I want to know, how can we even verify if it's supernatural or not just a natural phenomenon, right? So we can get into the evidences for the resurrection, for example. But when I was just before I deconstructed my faith, I started dating, and I've told this story a couple of times, but I started dating my beautiful wife. Thank you, Pragmatic Crystal. I started dating my beautiful wife, and I was making her this like this wooden jewelry box, and I was like working in my dad's shed, and I was like, feeling really good, and I was like coming back to God, and and Amy and I were going to church and stuff, and we weren't like sleeping together or anything. Like we were doing things like by the book, like as much as we could. Like we were trying to devote our whole lives to God. And I remember, like, I said to myself, like, I'm going to pray and get closer to God. So I closed my eyes. I started like praying. I put on some worship music, and I thought to myself, I'm going to open up and get like deeper with God. And I felt this like booming voice. Like it wasn't an audible voice. I didn't have like schizophrenia or something, but it was. I felt this what I would have called the voice of God, or did call the voice of God, tell me break up with Amy, and it was so anxiety, like so much anxiety just filled me, because I was like, I'm gonna hurt Amy's feelings. God's just told me to do this. I don't understand why. I'm so confused. I actually like had a panic attack, and I ended up vomiting in the garden. And then for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, I was just having like panic attacks every night and talking to pastors. I feel like God told me to break up with Amy, but it doesn't make sense because, blah, blah, blah. And then I talked to like the worship pastor. I have lunch with him. Oh, and then I went to see Christian counselors, and I went to see another Christian counselor. I'm like every single day I wasn't working. So every day I was just like we lived over the fence from the church. So I'd jump the fence. I'd go talk to people at the church that I used to work at. and I was like, man, this is like, I thought I had demons. I thought something spiritual was going on. I even asked the pastor, like, can we do like a deliverance thing for me? Because I'm pretty sure I've got like demons. Like, I'm pretty sure something's going on with me. And he was like, no, like, I don't think so. Kind of thing. Anyway, I go to a secular psychologist that my parents asked me to go to from this place called the Anxiety Relief Center. And the first time I went in, I thought it was like, I was like, this is so stupid. Like, this is, I'm used to like church services and stuff, but we literally just filled out like a questionnaire for like an hour, pretty much. Like, he was just asking me questions and I was just giving him answers and then he was writing them down. And we got to like the end of the session and I was like, well, that was kind of pointless. I didn't feel like anything. And I was like, but I'll go the second time. The second time I go there, one of the things he asked me to do is when I am having like a peak between the first session and the second session, when I'm having a peak anxiety moment, he wanted me to write down like, or at least memorize the thought that I was having at that peak. Like, what's the thought that's happening? And the thought that was happening is, what if God wants me to break up with Amy? And so I come back to the session and we're talking about that. And he goes, what's the thought? And I go, oh, cool. And then he says, I want you to repeat out loud, what if God wants me to break up with Amy? So I'm like, okay, no, because I'm a Christian and I believe that there's life and death in the power of the tongue. And if you say something, the spiritual forces, yada, 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 like you're speaking something into existence and blah, 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 blah. I was too scared to even say it. And he said, he tried to explain to me what words are. He tried to explain the science of words. And he eventually convinced me to essentially say this statement out loud. So I said, what if God wants me to break up with Amy? And then instantly so much anxiety comes up, right? And then say it again. What if God wants to break up with Amy? Say it again. What if God? And I'm just like, I've told this story before, but I'm just like having a panic attack now. Like, I'm looking for somewhere in his office to vomit in a bin, right? Because I'm just like, and I said to him, like, I'm having a panic attack. And he goes, keep saying it. Keep saying it. And I just kept saying, what if God wants me to break up with Amy? What if God wants me to break up with Amy? What if God wants me to break up with Amy? What if God wants me to break up with Amy? Over and over and over again. And then honestly, it was like a shattering of glass. It was just like snap. And all of a sudden I was like, what if God wants me to break up with Amy? And then he's like, say it again. And I was like, what if God wants to break up with Amy? And I realized this is so stupid. God doesn't want me to break up with Amy. Why did I think that God wanted me to break up with Amy? And like, literally, it was like I will say like a deliverance, like something happened, like like that thought just totally left. And then over, those thoughts, the thoughts of what if God wants to break up with Amy would come back, and I would re-say the statement over and over again. But over the course of like a few months of seeing him, he kept using the word OCD. And I said, you keep using the word OCD. Do you think I might have OCD? And he goes, you're getting pretty close. And I went, okay. And he's like this old guy, and he's like a full-on psychologist. Anyway, the point is, I was having these experiences that were making me vomit. I was having intense anxiety. I thought I had a demon. I needed deliverance. If I was in the 1600s, I would have said a witch had cursed me. I would have said that it was something supernatural. I would have pointed to something supernatural. I would have said, this is a supernatural thing, and I need to, to do some sort of ceremony or ritual to get rid of these evil spirits. But turns out a tool of psychology with natural sciences, working with naturalism in the natural world with physical connections in our brain, a tool of that got to break something spiritual over me. And so it was like, oh, wow. So that for me in my deconstruction process, that's something I always held on to, because I was like, damn, like I thought this was supernatural, but it wasn't. And so I kind of agree with Braxton when he says they're mistaken about where it comes from, right? Like he's saying that maybe this Hindu stuff, I'm imagining he's saying that maybe this Hindu stuff or Mormon stuff is coming from the spirit realm, but that spirit realm might be demons or something, right? I used to believe that same thing back when I was a Christian. I'm assuming he's going to go there, and I'm saying, okay, how do we know it's supernatural? Like show me evidence of the supernatural. Like James Randi for 20 years or something had a $1 million offer. If you could prove the supernatural under the test conditions that you agree to, he'd give you $1 million. And you can watch them all not be able to produce results in his on his YouTube channel and stuff. It's crazy. But show me any any sufficient evidence of the supernatural, and not just like something that we don't understand, not just like hearsay, not just like something like evidence. Like we have billions of people on Earth. We should have millions of cases of supernatural things that can be proven.
You say, yeah, but they say the same thing about it's supposed to be like an internal testimony from God that Mormonism is true. I don't deny that they had some sort of a supernatural experience. I don't question the validity of that. I question the source of that and whether that supernatural source can be trusted. Same with many other religions. And you say, yeah, but they say the same thing about you. That's right. That's why I don't point to my own supernatural experiences as the reason others should believe that Christianity is true. At least it's not the only thing. I want to point to the publicly available evidence that we've been discussing. And it's to that evidence that Jones says some of his debating partners have been biased as atheists. And we're going to see why right now.
You're describing.
So, and this is and I'll let him go on, but this is a fascinating thing to me because another two people did a critique of my debate with Jones. Let me just see if I can find it quickly. And their biggest point was the biggest point that I took away, which was hard to watch because they were essentially ripping on me the entire time and saying how much of a dickhead I was. But here we go.
There is an apologist in front of you.
So these guys.
Alrighty. So yeah.
So this guy here hates me, it appears. But he was saying how insufferable I am and stuff. But I really tried hard to try and put my feelings aside and really try to take on the criticism. And the thing that they brought up was my previous fundamentalism is probably affecting my worldview. And so back to this, I would agree with that. I think my previous fundamentalism is affecting my worldview. I think that when I used to preach about the gospel of Jesus, it was a similar thing to Ray Comfort, where I'll talk about, you experience the power of God. It's undeniable, right? To me, the Bible was great and everything, but like, you can't just base, like literally, you can't just base your worldview off what like an old book says, written hundreds of years after the fact, or 50 years after the fact. That's in a different language. That's insane. Like that's not enough evidence. Like you need to, and even like Jesus, in the story of Acts, it's like the Holy Spirit came down, and it says things like, you will baptize them in the Biddy Buddha. Oh, so good to see you. You have this. Oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. Biddy, it's been ages. Jesus told his disciples to go and preach the gospel, and you will baptize them in my name and drive out demons and drink deadly poison and it will not hurt you and blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff, the signs and miracles were supposed to come with that. It never said like, go and, preach the gospel and tell them how strong of this Bible is and how good of a scriptures these scriptures are and how like trustworthy they are. It doesn't say that. It says use the power of God. So I get that. This whole idea that we shouldn't trust supernatural experience now, and that we shouldn't trust our feelings, and we shouldn't trust the relationship we have with God, and we shouldn't trust the emotions we feel towards God, and we shouldn't trust like all that stuff. That's new to me. That's not the Christianity I grew up with. Apparently, my position was the minority position. Apparently, a lot of people just like to trust the book. I say that mockingly. I think with good reason, but we'll see what he has to say.
Describing what I think scholars do, which with the life of Jesus. Was there a person named Jesus? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Was he crucified by the Romans? Probably. Was he? Are there stories about him being put into a tomb? Yes. Was he resurrected? Well, a lot of them will start to disagree there.
Why?
I don't actually know the reasons why they might disagree, because I think Bart Ehrman will say that part of the punishment for the crucifixion wasn't actually just dying on the cross, but it was actually having your body displayed up there and decaying.
And then what about Josephus saying that the Jews used to take the bodies off the crosses and bury them before the sun going down? Or Philo saying that in Egypt on the emperor's birthday, they would take bodies off the cross and bury them. Or the fact that we found this guy named Yohanan with a spike in his ankle showing that he was crucified, yet he had a proper burial because he was in a burial box. So we have a bunch of evidence to show that the crucified victims did get buried at times.
Yeah, sure.
So
But-
but I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's a great case of just having this modern bias going, well, I don't think the Romans would have allowed Jesus to be buried. And then we go look all this evidence to show that no, they did allow people to get buried.
Firstly, I said I don't know. And then I said I think Bart Ehrman says this. Right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't making a case. I was just kind of going like, okay, maybe. But that's still, even if you can make a case for it, I would still say I don't know if it's sufficient to warrant belief.
And that he was buried?
Oh no, that he resurrected. Like,
Okay, well,
I could, but maybe that he was buried. Like, if you were to say, was Jesus buried, and that was the whole question, I'd probably go like probably neutral. I'll probably go bang on neutral actually, because I just don't know enough about. Like, I don't know if we can like for example.
No, I've had 2 debates on just if Jesus was buried, and both times I was like, are you guys seriously denying this? Like, the evidence is overwhelming that he was buried, at least. And I love those debates for one specific reason. You know what it was? Is I'm always told, well, you only believe this because it supports your beliefs. Fine, let's have a debate on something natural, Jesus being buried. And I left both of those debates thinking my opponents were so biased against that.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I'm the biased one.
Yeah.
I have all this evidence, and you can't believe Jesus was just buried in a tomb, but I'm the biased one.
Yeah.
Now stay with me, because we need to fill in some things real quick right here at the end. So why should we believe that it's reasonable?
Wait, we got 40 seconds left? Like, I was waiting for the argument. Damn. Oh, all right. Okay. All right, let's hear it.
To believe that God raised Jesus from the dead? Well, let's go with what the historians and experts tend to agree about. Number 1, Jesus existed. Number 2, he was willing to die by Roman crucifixion and did. Number 3, the earliest followers of Jesus had experiences after his death that they took and sincerely believed to be appearances of the risen Christ. And
I just want to say I fully am on board with this. I totally agree with this. Like, this makes sense to me, right? And this, I think historically we can claim as much, right?
then if you wanted to add more Christian gravy on top of this thing, guess what? The followers of Jesus took his message and turned the world upside down and built the ethics of the modern West on the back of the Judeo-Christian values that have led to Christianity as the #1 religion in the world. If you want more on that.
What the fuck? Sorry. What the am I need to go back.
The historians and experts tend to agree about. Number 1, Jesus existed.
So
Number
these
2,
are the points, right? So we just spent that whole video. By the way, Braxton, I love you. I'm just being animated because I'm a passionate person, right? But okay. So we just spent the whole thing about how we can't trust, we can't trust our feelings, can't trust our supernatural experiences because it could come from somewhere else. This is like Braxton's idea, worldview, right? Michael Jones's worldview, right? So let's look at the evidence. Okay, this is the evidence, right?
2, he was willing to die by Roman crucifixion.
So,
But I'm the biased one.
Yeah.
Now stay with me, because we need to fill in some things real quick right here at the end. So why should we believe that it's reasonable to believe that God raised Jesus from the dead?
why is it reasonable to believe that God, not something else, not let's say it was that aliens raised Jesus from the dead? Why couldn't that be the possibility? Why couldn't it be the possibility that like Jesus was in a coma for 3 days? Why couldn't it be a possibility that people were mistaken? Like this is okay. This is the evidence for the specific claim that God raised Jesus from the dead. Let's go.
Well, let's go with what the historians and experts tend to agree about. Number 1, Jesus existed. Number 2, he was willing
He existed. Okay.
to die by Roman crucifixion.
He was willing. I don't know, but he did die from Roman crucifixion. Yeah.
And did. Number 3, the earliest followers of Jesus had experiences after his death that they.
The earliest followers of Jesus had experiences after his death. Yes, totally get that. In fact, it would make sense to me, right? You have this like community of people who are really passionate. They believe that Jesus is the new Messiah. They believe he's going to return because he said so in Mark 13, Matthew 24, and Luke 16 or 21, I think. I can't remember. But he said he was going to return. And then some dude called Saul has an epileptic fit, sees a bright white light, and has an experience when he's on the road to Damascus persecuting Christians, and he believes that he sees Jesus, and Jesus tells him this stuff. Like he in my mind, let's use a natural explanation. He hallucinates. Like let's just say this is in the realm of possibility. This guy called Saul, who's persecuting Christians, has a epileptic fit or some sort of medical emergency. He hallucinates. He sees Jesus on the road to Damascus, a vision of Jesus. He believes that Jesus told him something. That why you persecute me, that he's a true religion. And then he goes around He converts to Christianity, then he goes around saying that Jesus is going to return and Jesus was crucified. And over like a bunch of time, 50 years later, we're getting or 30 years later, we're getting stories that people are saying, yes, I actually saw Jesus on the road, or yes, I saw Jesus to 5,000 people. Like that makes more sense to me, because we know that people have medical emergencies and hallucinate and see things that aren't there, and you cannot convince them otherwise that they didn't see their like grandfather who died, talk to them, or you didn't see, like, people have these experiences all the time. And then who's the most prolific writer we have in the New Testament? Paul. And what does Paul do? He runs around telling everyone about Jesus and starting churches. And what does he tell those churches? That Jesus is coming back and he's going to be the coming Messiah, etc., etc. And then when do we get the Gospels? We get the Gospels 40 years after the fact from anonymous accounts, and people are saying, yes, I saw Jesus. Like, to me, it looks like a myth that's forming, right? But then let's continue.
And sincerely believed to be appearances of the risen Christ. And then if you wanted to add more Christian gravy on top of this thing.
So they believe that they saw resurrections of Jesus, okay?
Guess what? The followers of Jesus took his message and turned the world upside down and built the ethics of the modern West on the back of the Judeo-Christian values.
Okay, I don't care about the modern West and all that stuff, because whatever. But they turned the world upside down for Jesus. Do you know who else is turning, or is successfully, I think, even way faster than Christianity? Islam. But I'd say that you'd say Islam isn't the one true religion, right? Right? Do you think the people who followed Muhammad and converted to Islam were doing it because they didn't believe it was true? Like, have you spoken to a Muslim? Like, any of you Christians? Like, I just don't understand. Like, literally, that's like the Muslims' whole thing is like how fast their religion is growing, right? And people will say, oh, it's the birth rates. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's still like they're turning the world upside down. It's the same arguments that you're saying. And anyway, it's, oh my God, oh God. Oh, yeah.
That have led to Christianity as the #1 religion in the world. If you want more on that historical case,
well, Braxton, thank you for making a cool video. I am going to subscribe. I'm going to like. Thanks. Did a review. A blind react to this on my channel. You can even see me type this message. Love ya. He seems like a cool dude, but I appreciate that. Let's go through some of these chats. Thank you so much, Biddy Butter. It's really good to see you again. I absolutely would love to do a show on OCD from religion, about religion. Like, I totally, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because I think, Biddy, I'm not sure if you're still here, but I actually think I might have text you when I was going through. I've been thinking about you a lot, actually, because something, especially around your idea of ritual agnosticism, I wanted to pick your brain about that a little bit. Just seeing, I'm not sure if I actually sent you a message, but essentially, like, one of the I'll get into it, but it goes into my mental health and stuff. Pragmatic crystal, because it's inconsistent and not scientifically possible. Yeah, but they would say that it's like miracles, right? They just kind of hand wave away all that because they go miracles. My point is, I don't think we have enough evidence to say it is a miracle rather than something else in the natural world that we just don't understand yet. Like, I use Hume. Yet. Yes. The ratio of those who didn't get buried and those who did is astronomical, laughable. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. This is what apologists do. They'll find like examples and they won't point to the most likely thing that happened. They'll point to, well, it could have happened this way. And if they just said that, yeah, it doesn't seem so, but it could have happened this way, I would be okay with it, actually. But they don't. They act as if it's like the main, like, thesis, like it's the main idea and like it's something that works. Judeo-Christian values built absolutely nothing about the Western morality and ethics. That's all comes from the Enlightenment. I don't know about that, Chip. Like, I think we've got to be careful not to you got to give credit where credit is due. Like, even things like, even though like I hate Islam, sorry, I shouldn't say that. There are some beautiful, sorry, I won't say that actually. That's mean to people who are Islamic, and same with I don't hate Christianity, but there are things in both those things that I truly do despise. But there are some beautiful things in those things as well. And I think that Christianity did serve. It was like a foundational idea in everyone's mind during the Enlightenment. Like it had to have some influence, right? Like I think, I don't know. I don't know enough about that, but that's just my 2 cents. Yeah, think we will address the preserving culture and birth rate part. I'm keen to discuss that. Yeah, I think someone mentioned, was it you, Master, that we talked about that? I think we'll talk about that in the comments. Someone was saying that it was like a alt-right dog whistle. I don't think it is. Like I know Michael personally. I don't think it is. He might be a useful idiot for those people, but I don't think he truly believes that. Buried. Also, I don't give a crap about Jesus. Jesus was crucified and being buried. Both of those are completely normal events. But resurrection has never ever been seen before or since. Yeah, and that's the point that they would bring up, right? And that's why we can trust it's Jesus. I killed Earl. So good to see you. I killed Earl. We're about to talk about where I've been and why. And you're part of that story. So, the Bible told me so. I'm just going to get there's a few more comments here. So this is cool. The political Messiah theory. Like, follow, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much. Yeah. All right. Before I get too distracted. So what do you guys want to hear first? Mental health or where I've been? Actually, they're both the same story. So okay, so I'll talk about my mental health, and then I'll talk about a little bit about the channel, and talk about a little bit about my apologetics take. Okay, so be very intrigued, I killed Earl. So I want to do more episodes, more like conversations just like this, like and hanging out with you guys. I was actually talking, I think I killed Earl, you would know, I posted in the members, because you're a channel member. I think I posted there that I wanted to start a spin-off show maybe called Hangovers, right? Like hangover, because deep drinks, and then hangovers, you're hanging out, right? I think that's a cool idea. And it was just going to be this. It's going to be like Q&As, hanging out, talking, and then I might I'll bring people on to discuss their stories, because a big part of sup Nitty, a big part of the big part of the problem that I have with deep drinks is it is exhausting, the amount of like work that I want to put into the interviews. And you saw the episode I did with Michael, like this thing it's just huge. Like it's just like I did put in so much work and edited, and like we got, like I had people filming this and stuff. And I want to make sure that if I'm putting in as much energy as I have been putting in to, the research of the guest, the reading their books, sometimes 10, 20 hours of research for a guest, that I'm honoring it with like the best production value, and it's worth my time. But at the same time, I really enjoy conversations with people that are off the bat that I don't really know too much about. Like, and this is where you come in a little bit, Ikildel, is I really want to have you on the show to discuss like some of your history and discuss some of the stuff about that. But I don't, well, for one, you don't have a book as far as I'm concerned that I can research and prepare questions. And also, like, I don't know if I want to have something as like formal for conversations like that. There are a few people that I want to bring on and just have conversations with, and treat it more as like a live stream, and then maybe even just put it as like we'll produce the episode live or something, and then maybe we'll like take clips out of that and make the live episode a members only thing after the fact, and then we can make clips out of it or something. And then so we've got essentially like the hangovers, which is hanging out with you guys that love the channel and love me. You guys just love me so much. That was just so cringe to say, sorry. But people who like wanted to hear from me and talk to me, and that's like hanging out. And then there's like a group of people who want to like hear kind of more structured interviews, deeper topics and things like that, and that'll be Deep Drinks. Where I've been over the last while is, I mean, this episode came out a month ago, but really it was 2 months. It was 30th of June, so it came out of like a while ago. So I had a little boy named Atlas. When I say had, he's still alive. Don't. I'm not dropping some. He's the love of my life. Like he is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I don't want to cry. But when so a lot of people were saying that when he'd be born, that I would look into his eyes and I would feel like a tremendous amount of like love or something and everything. That didn't really happen. The first time like I saw him, he was like coming out of his mum and Amy, and I looked at him and I was like, I thought, oh my God, are you dead? Because he was just like whatever, right? But then it reminded me of my dad straight away. Like he looked like my dad, and then he looked like me in my mind. It was a very hectic kind of thing. And I remember this is a funny story. For some reason, I've never done this since I was like 16 or something. But I like shaved my chest for some reason, like just as a laugh, like for some random reason. So I had like a spiky chest, and I had the baby, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I got like spiky hairs on my chest." So but yeah, that's like my first earliest memories of Atlas. But what I didn't expect is like about half a year or maybe 2 years into it, I started to like have some really hectic trauma come up for me. It's hard to say trauma because like for the most part I had a pretty typical like childhood. We had some stuff happen. Some my mum had some domestic abuse happen to her, and I had to call the police and stuff. And, you know, like, and my dad left when I was 6, like my parents split up. And so we saw him on weekends. So, but I mean, that stuff is like relatively, I hate to say typical, but it is for a lot of people. It's quite typical. But for some reason, like with Atlas growing up, I just started getting like thoughts over and over and over again, just like horrible thoughts of like, I would wake up and I would remember that one time I did something embarrassing in 4th grade. And then I would wake up and I remember that one time that, you know, I was laughing in 5th grade. And then I'd wake up at like, or even just throughout the day, I'd just have these like random thoughts about my life as a child. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. If they were good, I would think about like, oh, like how far life has come and stuff. And I got like really weird. And then it was around the time, the 29th of June is my birthday. And around this time I was like really struggling, and I went to bed and I saw this video that was like it was like what was it? It was like someone that was talking about how they're 35 now and growing old it sucks. And I was just turning 35. And they said that, what did they say? They said that, oh, if they live till they're 70, they're halfway through their life now. And I'd never thought of it like that. And I was like, oh, wow, if they live to year 70, that's like halfway through your life. Now, in Australia, I think the age people normally die is about 86 or something. It's higher than the US and that. But I'm like, damn, like let's just say I do live till I'm 70. That's like halfway through my life. And then I had the really scary thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to say goodbye to Atlas and Amy forever. I'll never see them again. And I don't know why, but that thought like fucked me up like really bad. I realized all of a sudden, I mean, I've been deconstructed for like 10 years or something or less, or a bit less, but all of a sudden I kind of realized that this is it. This is life. And I went into a deep, deep spiral of like nihilism and an existential crisis. And I started like it went dark. Like I work from home. So my anxiety got so bad that like just thinking about the inevitability of death and like what is the purpose of life and all these like thoughts, that on my lunch breaks I would go and like sleep for like the half an hour. I'd go to my bed and just try and sleep because I was just it was messed up. At the same time, I was changing medications for my anxiety and stuff. Well, I think I did as a result of this because they just weren't working anymore. And then coming off them and then going on, like, it was bad. So if you look at last year, I think when I'm like interviewing like Paul Agia, like he's like saying stuff like, you know, he chose to drink alcohol on his stream. He's doing a shot of tequila and like a beer. And I'm there with my coffee because I'm like, I just can't even No, I think I had a hot chocolate because I think caffeine was even too much for me. Like I didn't want to have alcohol. Like just really struggling with mental health. And I remember it got so bad that I was seeing a therapist and stuff, and I got so bad that I was like, when I'd be driving around, I'd be like looking at houses, and I'd have like a panic attack, going, "Oh my god, those houses will be gone one day. Everything will be gone. Like nothing will matter." And then like I got to, I remember I was like, I'm gonna tune this out. I'm gonna go and watch some like someone just play Skyrim, like on YouTube. I just typed in Skyrim Let's Play, and I'll just watch someone play a video game, like just get out of my head, right? So I'm watching this, and then I'm like, oh my god, this game is going to be gone forever. Like none of this matters. Like, and I just got like really like dark. And it got to the point where I remember being at a birthday party for one of Atlas's friends as a 1-year-old birthday party. And Atlas was like 1.5 or something. And he's running around and I'm just following him around. And the thought came across me like maybe like I'm so miserable and pathetic and all this stuff, and I'm so down that maybe it would be better that I didn't exist, right? Like maybe it would be better if I did die. Now I wasn't suicidal or anything like that, but that thought, I never had a thought like that. I've never ever had a thought like that, and that thought was so scary. And just thinking about, I couldn't stop ruminating on the thoughts of like Atlas not having a dad anymore, or Amy not having a husband anymore, and it was just a really dark, and I couldn't get out of this like thing. Anyway, I reached out to lots of people. I don't know, Biddy, if I reached out to you. I reached out to D, who used to be a channel member, I think. I reached out to a few people because I was like, how the fuck, like I don't, like people who have been atheists your entire life, like how do you deal with this issue? Like this is like brutal for me. Anyway, there's a happy ending to all this. So, and and this is also what bothers me is people say like, oh, you don't want to believe in a god or whatever. Like at that time, like I wish I had some like belief in a god or something, because you can just kind of just hand wave it away. Oh, we'll be in heaven or whatever. I wish I had that, but I truly believe that we just didn't have sufficient reason to warrant those beliefs, even though my heart was crying out for some deeper purpose and stuff, right? So anyway, long story short, and I'll start reading the chat in a second, but it's gone to my therapist and stuff. And then I kind of realized that what I was going through was all bullshit. Like this sounds so stupid, but remember when I said that if you haven't caught earlier in the stream, I talked about my OCD with my what if God wants to break up Amy. I realized, after I got through that was so bullshit. I used to have so I've had OCD about what if God wants to break up Amy. I had a long period of what if I this is so weird. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I had this long period of what if I become spontaneously gay, and then I have to leave Amy because I'm not attracted to her anymore, and then it breaks Amy's heart, and then I have to go dancing in clubs in Brisbane. I don't like dancing in clubs in Brisbane, and I don't want to have sex with men. I'm not attracted to men. But what if I'm talking, this is funny, but like this is legitimately like months and months of like my life being ruined over this intrusive thought. And then I just kind of realized this whole thought about death and everything and nihilism and what's the purpose and stuff was just another one of those things. It was just another OCD tick. And then when I realized that, same thing, I just kind of like through therapy and everything, I just kind of was able to let it go. And I realized it was just bullshit. It's just another little trick that my brain says. And then moving out of all that, because I don't have those fears anymore or anything. I don't have those anxieties anymore. Well, they still linger, but they're not like ruining my life. I'm actually really happy at the moment and have been for a couple of months. But I've realized that God doesn't solve any of those problems anyway. Okay, so like let's say like what's the purpose of life? What's the purpose? Like nothing matters. It's all going to be destroyed. Okay, let's flip it. All right, what's the purpose of existing? Are we just God's plaything? Are we just going to live in heaven forever, doing whatever God wants, living without any of our thoughts being private, not having not ever being able to check out, being stuck there for eternity, like never being able to leave? Like, what's the purpose of that? Are we just God's like toys? So like you can make the same like psychotic, I won't say psychotic, but yeah, you can make the same arguments, like the same OCD thoughts. And it's kind of like it's kind of bullshit. And something that my psychologist kind of pointed out was, if you take
sorry, I just want to touch on one thing first. What if I'm going to turn gay thing, or what if like that's actually like a well-known thing in OCD. There's actually maybe even a subcategory called sexual orientation obsessive compulsive disorder. And now, like, I could watch gay porn and just be like, huh, they look like they're having a great time. Like, it doesn't trigger me, like, you know what I mean? But I eventually got over that. And the same with like a lot of these things are OCD, and like existential OCDs are like a real thing. Like, what's the purpose of everything? I find that there's a lot of these. It's OCD essentially for me. And oh my gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh my gosh. Someone remind me, what was I talking about? Maybe I'll read some chats. Kissing God's butt for eternity sounds like hell to me. Yeah. Basing's one, mortality can be tough. I'm approaching 54, which means even if I live to 85, well, I'm over halfway there. My dad passed 5 years ago at the age of 75, and my mum is 79 in declining health. I'm sorry to hear that, Chip. It's yeah, I mean, like, it's a sick joke, right? Like, it's a sick joke, life sometimes. There is death acceptance, and then there's a mental health adventures. When you say things will end one day and shudder, it may be mental health adventures. Time to talk to a health provider. Yeah. So yeah. And so this is the thing, is like, when I kind of just accepted that, like, that I'll die and my particles will go into the earth, and those particles will eventually maybe be another conscious creature one day. And, you know, like, same with like Atlas will one day die, and he'll one day say goodbye to his kids, and like all this stuff, if he has kids. You know, it's just like, oh, okay, like, it's not that big of a deal. Oh my gosh, I had a really good point, and I'm just hoping that I don't forget what I was going to say. But anyway, long story short is I'm a lot better now. I'm a lot more like stable and doing well. Seeing a psychologist was awesome. Oh yeah, what I was going to say is, and I think I'll finish this because I'm getting so distracted, but he was saying that if you take someone with OCD, right, or anxiety, and you give that, you pull out one of their intrusive thoughts, write it down on a piece of paper, put it into a bowl. And like, let's say that's what if I push this old lady down the stairs? Oh my gosh, what if I'm a psychopath? That's like a classic OCD intrusive thought. Or whatever it might be. There's a big one, actually. So thankful I don't have this, but or I haven't experienced this, but there's one around pedophilia. So people will be so worried that they're going to turn into a pedophile, or that they are a pedophile, that like they can't go near kids, that they're like terrified of that. So that's like another OCD that's actually quite common. It's called pedophilic. I know these are subcategories of like what people experience, but essentially whatever you find really like taboo, or you're kind of worried that, like, for me, it was always about worrying I was going to hurt Amy. It's like, well, if I was gay and then I didn't realize, and then I wasn't attracted to girls anymore for some reason, and then like oh no, like that would hurt Amy. Like, so that's, anyway, if you take people's ideas, snip them out of their head, put them in a bowl, mix it up, and you've got someone who's like the most mentally obsessive compulsive person in the world here, and you've got someone who's like Mr. Perfect or Mrs. Perfect, who's just totally balanced, well, perfect. You mix up their intrusive thoughts, you won't be able to tell the difference between the two. Like, they'll have the same type of intrusive thoughts. It's just that the person with a more with a more balanced mental health will have a different relationship with those thoughts. So they'll walk past someone walking down the stairs. This is the example my first psychologist gave me, is they'll see an old lady walking down the stairs, and they'll think, what if I pushed her over? Like, which is and then they'll just laugh it off. And I'll go, okay, that was weird. Why do my thoughts do that? Where the OCD person might be like, oh my gosh, am I a psychopath? Am I a serial killer? And I don't know it. Oh my gosh. Like, and then they can't stop thinking about murder and stuff. It's horrible. And funny enough, actually, a lot of religious people, my first psychologist talked about one of his patients who had OCD. Every time he'd go to church or try to do anything, he would get a lot of blasphemous thoughts. The most like disgusting, blasphemous, evil thoughts would pop into his mind, and he thought it was Satan, right, trying to stop him from worshiping God. But it just turns out that he had an intrusive, obsessive thought when he went to church. He tried to hide from it. As a result of hiding from it, it made the thought bigger. The thought gets bigger. You keep hiding from it, it gets bigger and bigger. Keep hiding from it, it gets bigger and bigger, and then eventually
it was all consuming every time he went into a church. And the way to deal with that is, first, if you are dealing with anything like that, go to a therapist. Definitely go to a psychologist. Just, I cannot stress that enough. It's super important. Even if you have to do one of those online ones that like BetterHelp or whatever, I know they get a bad rap, but it's better than nothing. Just go to a psychologist. But the way to approach those things is you have to turn around and face them and just look them. If you've got OCD and you're worried that when you've touched something you might have germs all over your hands, rub it all over your face, rub it all over your body, and then just don't wash yourself. That's like, you have to put yourself in like a situation like that and just show yourself that nothing bad is going to happen. And it's called exposure response prevention therapy. Anyway, so that's where I've been. So for me, having deep conversations when I was dealing with nihilism, existential dread, and all those things was actually really hard. And not having, and also being a new father, I just didn't have the time to do all this research into guests and stuff. In saying that, I still love having these deep conversations. I still love having conversations about God and about morality and about human rights and stuff like that. So I am actually still continuing to do deep drinks-esque stuff, and have been reaching out to some professors and some people that I want to interview if something sparks my interest. But at the moment, deep drinks will be, I guess, pretty lackluster in the amount of episodes that come out. But I'm hoping, if you guys are interested, especially if you're interested in coming on and talking about stuff, and I know you, like you're a channel member or something, then just hit us up, because I'd love to just do another like a conversation like this, really low key. I won't prepare for it, and we'll just like have a yarn about something. We can do more of these. That would be cool. But as far as like big deep drinks episodes, they're be few and far between at the moment. But I don't see this as something I'm going to stop. At least, well, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I just love the conversations, and I love having. I just get so inspired about having these type of deep conversations. So I don't think it's something I'm ever going to stop. So one day, and when Atlas is in school, or maybe when our second kid is in school or something, I'll be able to pump them out on a more of a regular basis. And especially if I get enough funding from everyone at Patreon and channel members and stuff, which, if you don't want to sign up now, I totally get it, because I'm not producing content. Or if you have to leave, I totally get it. But yeah, hopefully one day I could do this full time, but who knows? So I think I might leave it there. Does anyone else have any questions for me? Drop some questions if you have any questions, and I'll just briefly discuss my conversation with Michael about apologetics being foundationally dishonest. But if you have any questions, drop them in and I'll get to them. So, okay, we don't need to go over it again. But in this conversation with Michael, the first claim was on apologetics, and the claim was apologetics is foundationally dishonest. Now, I was lit up in the comment section, like, damn, dude. Hang on, let me see if I can. Let's see if I can have a look at any of these. I was rewatching this and found the secret credits at the end. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I love how the host brings up arguments, and when they're immediately refuted, he goes, "Yeah, but still," and then quickly changes the subject. 253 likes. Like, oh my gosh, is that even more than the actual video? Oh no, it's not. It's got 700 likes. IP telling the host he's doing exactly what he's accusing IP of doing is spot on. Claim one should have been apologetics is dishonest when you don't concede to my non-Christian worldview or give me answers I like about the Bible. Okay. So I don't like apologetics. Why? Because I don't like when people I dislike give me legitimate answers. Okay. So this is like the view that people have. Okay. So to briefly touch on this and where my thoughts are at the moment, the claim apologetics is foundationally dishonest it was probably, like, I still agree with that. But what I want to kind of talk about is, so there's a few things I brought up. I brought up that when people are like debating a subject, they're acting as apologists on both sides. So like if you get like a biologist defending evolution in a debate, they're acting as they're creating a defense, a steelman defense of their position. So they're not going to like bring in ambiguity. They're not going to do all those things, right? They're just going to give the best case for their side of the argument. And I think that's fine. I think I initially in that conversation said that was intellectually dishonest or some form of dishonest, and I've moved away from that. I think that was a misspeak. I don't think that really makes sense. So we have that, right? We have like the two sides of people, apologist doing the two sides. Like each apologist has their own, like each person is kind of acting as an apologist. The issue I have with apologetics as a field is an apologist, or when you're debating someone, you're acting as a lawyer at trial, right? Giving evidence for you're acting as a lawyer. You're at trial. But an apologist is someone who's always at trial. By definition, they're always making a defense of something. I am the defender, right? They might go away and not act as an apologist, but as soon as you go to an apologist, you're talking to someone who's making a defense for something. So I'll give you an example. Well, I'll ask you this question. If you have a question for a Bible, if you have a question about the Bible and you're a Christian, why would you go to an apologist and not a Bible scholar? That is, what is the apologist bringing to the conversation that a Bible scholar wouldn't? Why does an apologist exist in that instance? Because the Bible scholar is the one who studies the Bible. And if you have a question about the Bible, why not go to a Bible scholar? I've even seen some apologetics channels like Testify Apologetics, Eric, say, don't listen to Bible scholars. What? They're the ones who study the Bible. Now, they're definitely Christian. I think the majority of Bible scholars are Christian. But I think that's the foundational problem with apologetics is they are defending a predetermined world view by definition. Like by definition, a Bible scholar, you go up to a Bible scholar and you say, hey, why are there contradictions in these two accounts? And they will give you like a bunch of plausible scenarios, right? And they'll say, this is what the consensus generally says. This is what most people think, and this is why they think it. This is a minority position. Blah blah blah. What an apologist will do is if they're an apologist who doesn't believe there are contradictions in the Bible or defends the idea that there aren't contradictions in the Bible, an apologist will go, well, hang on, you're making assumptions, and they'll have this like whole script that they go through that they've been taught to give an answer for that problem rather than just to come to a conclusion based on the evidence. So like, okay, I'll give you an example. This is something that Michael pointed out to me, or we came to the conclusion when Michael and I spoke, is if I was having a conversation with Michael Jones and I said, did the Exodus happen? And he said, as far as we can tell, it didn't. There wasn't a great exodus from Egypt the way the Bible said. But if you wanted to make the Bible work, this is how you can make it work. I would have no problem with that. I would have no problem with that. I'll be like, okay, cool. Like, so you're admitting that there's not sufficient evidence. It doesn't make sense for a variety of reasons. But if you had to make it work, this is how you could do it. That I'd be fine with that. Right, because it's bringing up a position that's a minor position, and you're going, well, you could translate this to mean this, and you could say that I'm not going to make a case for all the miracles because we can't prove them, and you could say the burning bush is blah blah blah, and you can't, and the burning mountain and the 12 plagues were all natural and blah blah. Like you could, if you did that, that would be totally fine, right? But they don't do that. They say this is the case I'm going to make for the Exodus, and they act as if they are giving the most likely reading of the situation. Yeah. So that's my problem with apologetics. Anyway, I'll answer some of your questions. All right, where are we at? Hang on, let me go up. What would it take for you to convert to Islam? That's a good question, actually. I would need a lot. I would need like a lot of my. I would need there to be sufficient reason to warrant belief in a God, first of all, and then I would need sufficient reason to that Islam is the correct path for God, and I would and convert to Islam too. Oof. And I would need things like Quran 434. I would need the most likely reading of that to make sense. So when it says, you know, if your wife is disobeying you, ignore her and then sleep in separate beds and then hit her. And some people say, well, it means hit her with a feather. Like I go, oh my God. Even apologists in Islam are ridiculous. But if you could find a way that wasn't just a horrible misogynistic domestic abuse passage, then and all the others that I have problems with, and we could verify that it was true, then yeah, I would convert to Islam, of course. If there's sufficient reason to, if there's sufficient evidence to warrant belief, then I'm going to believe in something that something is true. So provide sufficient evidence. I killed an Earl. Probably has a lot to do with the purity culture you were in for so long. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like, my adolescence was, and sorry if there's too much TMI, but it was just like explore my sexuality through like masturbation or looking at porn or something like that, and then beat myself up about it for like a few days and be miserable and sad and stuff. So like this whole shame, like sexuality shame spiral was like crazy, and yeah, and like and a lot of the stuff we used to watch was like, Bill thought it was fine to look at his granddad's pornography collection when he was a kid, but only 10 years later he was a gay prostitute selling himself on the streets for drugs. And I was just like, oh my God. And so yeah. Chip, I used to get intrusive thoughts associated with ADHD. Once I learned what they were, they almost completely disappeared. Yeah, it's crazy, right? You take the power out of them, it just goes, right? When you kind of realize what they are. What are your thoughts on Paula G's minimal witnesses hypothesis? I like it. Now I've interviewed him about that, and I haven't done like a deep dive into it. Like, so a lot of the points that he's bringing up and the counterpoints, I'm not familiar with like the corpus of like why it matters. Sounds good from my uneducated perspective, but I don't fully understand like the greater context around that. I haven't heard anyone like give retorts on that or anything. But again, minimal witnesses hypothesis. I mean, it makes sense, like from a natural perspective. There's something else I really want to talk about, but I might save it for another. I'll save it for the next time I do one of these. What would it take for you to convert to Islam? Already talked about that. I'm glad you were able to recognize when OCD is being mean to you. It took me a long time to hear the difference between my OCD voice and my real one. Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right? People actually will name their OCD like a little monster. And you can see why people believe in demon possession, and spirits and stuff, right? Like our minds are incredibly hard, incredibly like insane, like in that way. None of us are going to convert to Islam because we know religious beliefs are nonsense. Give me criteria for evidence before dismissing everything and being a denialist. Look, man, like I've had conversations with and this was the Chip, but I'll answer it as well. Oh, Trinity Radio, hell yeah, you're actually here. Sorry. So I've had conversation with people from Islam, and what they'll do is they'll try and get you to kind of admit that we had to come from somewhere, right? We had to come from something. It makes no sense that that we just came, like everything just came from nothing. Like, what is it, the cosmological argument or whatever? And I go, well, no, I don't know, right? Like, but you're making the case that we came from God, but I'm saying, where did God come from? Well, God just was, and all this stuff. And I go, but like, you haven't won me over on that first step. So you'd have to win me over on that first step. And again, I'm not trying to like deny the existence of God. In fact, fuck it, I will talk about what I'm thinking about doing. No, actually, I won't talk about what I'm thinking about doing. But it's essentially, I'm looking at exploring religious I'll talk about it another time. Exploring religious ideas as an atheist. What good can I get out of a ritual at a Hindu ceremony, a Christian ceremony? Like, what if I go into a Pentecostal church and I give my whole heart to the experience as much as I possibly can? Because obviously, I've got these like naturalistic worldviews, but I'm going to try really hard, like a D&D campaign, to go into a Pentecostal church, raise my hands, and really feel the presence of God. And I probably will feel the presence of God. And then I'm going to go to the presence of God. And then I'll go to a Hindu ceremony, and I'll really try and like absorb their message, like I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, really get invested, and see what happens. And I will go to a mosque as well, and be part of a Muslim ceremony. This is what I'm thinking of doing, and then creating like a video like atheist reviews religion. But yeah, I mean, and if I'm convinced, then hey, you might be watching a religious channel in a few years, but I doubt it, because you need to. I've heard a lot of arguments so far, and none of them have been sufficient to warrant belief, in my opinion. A wise man proportions his belief to the evidence. Trinity Radio, thanks for covering this. Watching now, love you, Trinity Radio. I got animated before, but thanks for watching. And then a bunch of people just arguing with Ahmed. What did Isaiah see in the temple? Isaiah 6, was it God's dangly bits, or was it just his robe? I don't know. I think Dr. Francesca Stathopoulos makes a really good argument for this in her book. It's been a couple of years since I've read it, but I've got a signed version back there, and it's the best. Again, you really asked me to convert to Islam. I think, Ahmed, are you the person who keeps asking me to have Muslim apologists on? And I said I did have I've had people who are writing their own translations of the Quran, and they also said that what they said that Quran 434, if that was implemented in Australia as law, where a husband could legally beat their wife, it would lower the amount of domestic abuse. That's right, it would lower it somehow. I think it's because what happens then is you go, well, it's not technically domestic abuse anymore because it's legal. So, people would know that, and I think he's made the argument that people would know, wives would know to shut up and do their job. So, yeah. But Ahmed, let me ask you this. What would it take for you to deconvert from Islam? Is Quran 434 enough for you to go, this is obviously not written by a God, by the all-knowing, all-powerful creator of the universe? This is obviously not written by God. This is obviously written by a man, right? Yeah, cool. Oh yeah, you said it here. And I love Francesca Stathopoulos' book. I know it's absolutely incredible. So guys, that's where we're at the moment. No one asked, but I'm going to tell you. The book I'm reading at the moment, and I'm in love with, absolutely in love with. Like, it is like, it's so interesting. It's like Game of Thrones, right? The Mahabharata. It's the original, I think, is 10 times longer than the Iliad and the Odyssey. The original has I think it's one long story, and it's like considerably longer than the Bible, like the whole Bible, but it's just one long story. It is like crazy, and it's part of the Hindus. It's part of the Hindus like holy scripture. It's not like the Vedas where it's like songs about God, but it's like stories that teach about the gods and stuff. But it is like super interesting. I cannot recommend this enough. In fact, I think I'm even working on a website to help the reading, because I'm 4 chapters in, and there's like hundreds of characters already, so it's brutal. Yeah. For me to deconvert, you would have to disprove God existing. So that's hang on, disprove God existing. So that's proving a negative. I don't think that's how it works. Which would be hard since you're appealing to your own criteria. Yeah. So this is the unfalsifiability of religious beliefs. Yeah. Also, any mistakes in the Quran or contradictions would work. Okay, cool. The moon was not split in two. Show me a non-Muslim scientist that believes that the moon was split in two. And there you have it. I'll see you next week when, Ahmed, you are no longer Islamic. And I'll see you guys later. thanks for joining in, and let me know if you want to see more of these like casual streams with people to just have a yarn. See you guys later. Bye.